Okay, let's commence our discussion with an opening prayer to be led by Andre. Can you lead our opening prayer, Andre?
Hello, sir. Madunggan ko ninyo, sir.
Yes, yes, loud and clear.
Okay, let us pray. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Yan, thank you so much, Andre. So again, good morning, grade 9 students, no? Today we will have another topic under physics. So I hope na ato ang calculator, a piece of paper and your ballpen as well. Okay, let us start para dili kay ta maglapas sa oras. Let me just share my screen. Okay, let's have first sort of review before I introduce to you our topic this morning class. So, what did we discuss last week? Ano yung topic natin last week? We discussed about, yes, Dana? Ayan, from Jessica, we discussed about momentum. Ayan. And addition to that, we also discussed about impulse. So, last week, we have discussed about the impulse momentum theorem and what is it exactly? So, based on your answer class, can you define what is momentum? Ano bang momentum? What can you tell about momentum and what can you tell about impulse as well? Ano bang momentum class? Yes, Andre.
Sir, sa impulse, sir, impulse is the change of the momentum, sir. Then, impulse, sir, maapektuhan siya sa velocity at, ano, sir, uh, mass.
Ayan, so according to Andre, impulse is the change no in momentum. So when it comes to momentum naman, it is being affected by the velocity and the mass of an object. And yung impulse, it is the total, the sum total of force at saka yung time. Okay, again, yung momentum is being affected by the mass of the object and of course the velocity. Gaano siya kabilis? Okay, yung ating object, for example, yung vehicle. So if there is a change in momentum, for example, you apply force or you apply a brake if you are riding or if you are driving a four-wheeled vehicle, then that is or there is a change in momentum and that is what we call the impulse. Okay, impulse is the product of force and time and of course mass and velocity. So remember, I mean, if you can still recall, yung ating standard unit for momentum and impulse is just the same. Okay? Yan siya. Now, yan, it has already been answered no by Andre. So what are the factors that influence the momentum of a moving object? So let us still answer this question if you can still recall. the concepts that we have discussed. Ano yung factors na maka-influence ng momentum of a moving object? Jillian. Momentum is affected by these two factors. Where's Jillian? Ayan, so, okay. Ayan, andito na pala yung sagot. We have here mass and velocity. Same goes with Adler, Johan, and Dirk. Again, class, yung momentum ng object is being affected by the mass and the velocity of an object. So, the greater the mass, the greater the velocity, the greater the momentum, right? The lesser the mass, the lesser the velocity, the lesser its momentum. Basically, mass and velocity is directly proportional to the momentum. Okay? Yan siya. Next, mass and velocity of an object. These are the factors that affect the momentum of a particular vehicle. Now, question, is there a momentum in a non-moving object? Naabay momentum? Ayan, according to Andre, Adrian, Dirk, Joelyn, Adler, Jillian, and Jessica, and Johan as well, all of them answered 0 or none. There is no momentum in a non-moving object. Why is that? Anong wala man tayong momentum in a non-moving object? If we are going to dissect the concept of this momentum, why we can tell na walang momentum yung mga object na hindi nag-move? Why is that, Sophia? Ayan, meron tayong mga sagot dito sa ating chat box. For Jessica, no velocity, sir. 0 velocity. For Joelyn, Adler naman says it has no velocity. Dirk also answered it doesn't have velocity. Do you agree with that, Sophia? Ayan, yes, sir. Because we can say if any object of any mass is not moving, that means to say it has 0 momentum since its velocity is 0. Again, class, momentum is possessed by all moving objects. If that object is at rest or resting, for example, yung vehicles na nakapark in a certain parking area, not moving, that means it possesses 0 momentum. Magkaka-momentum ka lang if you are moving. Okay? Yan siya. What do you think is common in an object that is at rest and object that is in motion? So we have been discussing that momentum is possessed by moving objects. So we somehow discard itong mga objects that are at rest. But what is common between objects that are at rest and objects that are in motion? Sige daw, do you have any idea? Mass, yan, it has mass, exactly. Whether the object is moving, whether the object is at rest, naana sila'y mass. Right? What else? Aside from mass. Try to discern the concept apart from mass class. Ayan, so this is the question. Actually, this is the question that we are going to answer through this lesson or through this topic. Ayan, from Andre and tsaka si Kate, both of them answered energy. And that is what we are going to discuss this morning. Okay, thank you for that. So we will be discussing about work, power, and energy. To be specific, we will be tackling about conservation of energy. Conservation, makonserve ba ang energy? Yes or no? What do you think, class? Can we conserve energy? And from Adler, yes, yes, and yes. Okay. Before I continue pala, class, no, starting next week, actually, dapat dugay na siya eh. Starting next week, we are encouraging you to unmute your microphone instead of, you know, chatting it on the chat box. If your microphone is working naman. But if your microphone is not working, then you can put your answers in the chat box. But if everything is good, if everything is functioning well, then we are encouraging you to unmute your microphone. Okay? Again, let me post my objectives first, or our objectives, this topic. So at the end of the session, you will be able to identify the different forms of energy, solve problems involving conservation of mechanical energy. Do not worry because it is very easy. And cite ways on how to conserve energy. I know that you have an idea naman on how to conserve energy since some of you have chosen environmental problem that deals with energy. Later on, I will be asking you, ano yung mga simple ways ninyo to conserve energy in your respective home? Now, we all know, class, from our previous topic that all moving objects possess momentum. Right? Nana sila yung momentum. Lahat ng bagay na gumagalaw, they all possess momentum. In addition to that, class, they also have energy. Right? Ayan. So, all moving objects possess momentum, and they also have certain amount of energy. Now, in general, all objects, regardless of their state of motion, ato abang object is at rest, is our or if our object is in motion, gumagalaw siya, they all possess a certain amount of energy. We run, we walk, we think, whenever we answer our activities in our LK or our LMS, and we require certain amount of energy for us to think effectively, okay, to provide the correct answer. If wala kay kaon, then expect that you will not be able to think, clearly. Ayan. Even when we sleep, all of these activities, class, require a certain amount of energy. Now, my question is, where do we get the energy that we have right now? As you are listening to me, trying to grasp everything. And where do we get the energy that we have right now? Ano yung source?
Food, sir.
Ayan. Primarily, food. Okay, from Andre, Adler, tsaka si Maris. We get our energy, class, from the food that we eat. Ano yung pagkaon nga gikaon? It has a certain amount of calorie that will give you enough energy, class, to function in your day-to-day activities. Okay, that is why it is very important for you to have a snack, or saba na siya, to have a breakfast before you immerse yourself to your activities sa school. Kasi pag wala kang kain, then there is no enough glucose sa imuhang utok for you to think, no? So that is why it is very important to eat before you immerse yourself to certain activity. Okay, but that is right. Our primary source of energy is food. Now, in general, energy is the ability of an object to do work. Okay, we cannot do work if we do not have energy. Now, we are talking about mechanical energy in this chapter or in this discussion. Mechanical energy, it has two types. We have kinetic energy and potential energy. Okay, just like what I've said earlier, that this topic, class, is kinda a review for you based sa ato ang discussion when you were in grade 8. Now, are you familiar with kinetic and potential energy? Kindly raise
Yes,
your
sir.
hand. Yan. Andre is familiar siya with kinetic and potential energy. Ayan, thank you so much. Okay. Now, as you can see here, I have two illustrations on your screen right now. I want you to identify, class, which illustration shows potential energy and which illustration shows kinetic energy. I'll give you 10 seconds to observe the illustration. Okay? 10 seconds is up. Right. Sige. Um, let's have Chai. Okay, Chai. Which of these illustrations, Chai, shows potential energy and kinetic energy? Let's start with potential energy. Asa dari banda ang potential energy? Ayan, according to Chai, nasa left ang kinetic energy and nasa right ang potential energy. Okay, let us check. Or do you agree with class, Chai's answer? Can I have a raise hand button if you agree with that? Ang sa left daw, muna ang kinetic. Ang sa right, muna ang potential. Okay. Yeah, thank you so much for that. Now, the left illustration, class, shows an example of kinetic energy. The right one, steady lang siya. Wala na siya nahagbong, class. Naka-steady lang yun na siya. That is potential energy. So from this illustration, from this, out of this slide, class, what can you deduce about kinetic energy and potential energy? What can you tell about kinetic and potential energy? Let's start with kinetic. Let's have um Audrey. What can you tell about kinetic energy?
Yung kinetic energy po is at motion po. I mean, nag-move po.
Ayan. So thank you so much, Audrey. According to Audrey, kinetic energy is there is involvement of motion or yung mga objects na naga-move. Ayan. So that is basically right. Okay? How about potential energy? What can you tell about potential energy? Let's have Micaela. If yung kinetic energy, according to Audrey, is naga-move siya, how about potential energy? Ayan, so sa potential energy, sir, kasi hindi siya naga-move and naga-store siya ng energy. Ayan, so from what thank you so much, Micaela. From what Audrey's answer and Micaela's answer, we can deduce, class, that when we say potential energy, let's start with potential, okay? When we say potential energy, it is energy possessed by objects at rest. As you can see here, the rock is resting at this particular position or place. Ayan, so energy possessed by objects that are at rest or objects that are not moving. Okay, potential energy. And potential energy, class, it has two types. Meron siyang dalawang klase. First is gravitational potential energy. It is the energy possessed by an object because of its location or position. Okay, first type of potential energy is we have gravitational potential energy. So from what the name implies, it involves gravity. Okay? Energy possessed by an object because of its location or position. For example, books lying on the table and a car that is parked in an inclined plane. Ayan, so there is a certain height from the ground up to the books, and of course, from the ground to the car. Ayan, so this is considered as gravitational potential energy because of the location and position of the books and the car. Next type of potential energy class is elastic potential energy. Elastic. Okay? It is the energy stored in a stretch or compressed elastic material such as spring. Not just spring but also includes rubber band as long as ma-stretch siya. Okay, that is elastic potential energy. Ayan. Who among you here are familiar with this game? Familiar ba mo ani na game? Ayan, Adler, yes. Isa pa ang familiar ani. Actually, nani siya sa ano, um, sa computer, no? Pinball machine. But I haven't tried it yet. Kanang naanag siya sa akong tubangan. Ayan, so pinball machine. So, some of you have already tried playing this game. And as you can see here, class, the side of or sa dap plane ani na pinball machine, we can find here ito siya, itong spring. Let me have my laser. And if you are going to pull this part of the spring, class, or this part of the launcher, mag-compress yung ating spring and mag-compress yan siya. Okay? So as it compresses, it will store enough energy, potential energy. It will store potential energy. And once you release that one, class, this spring will launch the ball towards this part of the pinball machine, where the ball strikes, no, a certain amount of walls, or certain amount of what we call this one, objects that will send the ball to the different directions of the pinball machine. This is one of the examples that shows elastic potential energy. Ito siya. You are going to pull this object, mag-compress yung ating spring, storing enough potential energy. If you are going to release that one, that potential energy will be converted into kinetic energy that will send the ball to this part of the pinball machine. Later on, I will discuss ano yung conversion. Okay, yan siya. Elastic potential energy is characterized by things like spring at saka rubber band. Ito naman, again, yung isa, we have gravitational potential energy. The other type of energy, class, ito yung kinetic energy, possessed by objects that are moving or that are in motion. Energy possessed by objects by virtue of its motion. Okay, for example, yung kanina, the ball is rolling, no, over the inclined plane. And for example, a bullet, and that shows kinetic energy. Stream, okay, as long as there is movement, there is motion, that meron diyang kinetic energy. Yan, the rock falling off the cliff, and that shows kinetic energy. Roller coaster, yan, basta kay naga-move na siya, class, that object possesses kinetic energy. And as you can see here, I have an illustration. It has a figure 1 tsaka figure 2. And they are different from what they are doing. Figure 1, the man is holding the ball or a ball. Figure 2 naman, parehar guni sila, parehar mo sila now. Okay? The man is throwing the ball, no? Yan, towards the ground. Which of these figures, class, show potential energy? Is it the figure 1 or the figure 2? Ayan, from Jessica's, Claire's, Adler's, Clyden's, Maurice, Dirk's, Dean, Jillian's, Dana's, Maria, Audrey's, Jane's, Elgen, Niels, Johan's, Jolene's, Michaela, Adrian's answer, all of them answered figure number 1. Figure number 1 shows the potential energy. Why is that? Anong makaingon man ta that figure 1 shows potential energy? Because the ball or the object is, yan, very good. Object is at rest, no? There is no motion involved. In figure 2 naman, we can tell that this activity sa figure 2 shows kinetic energy because the ball is moving towards the ground. So there is a movement na. Okay? Yan. So in this case, class, we can tell that, kindly read this one. Let's have Kim.
When the ball is on the top, it has potential energy. However, as the ball falls towards the ground, its potential energy is transformed into kinetic energy, which will continue increasing as it gains momentum only until it finally collides with the surface.
Ayan. So based on what you have read, what can you deduce based on this slide? What can you tell about this slide based on what you have read, Kim?
Kapag hawak-hawak ko po ng tao yung bola is may potential, nasa potential energy pa po siya. Pero kapag tinapon niya po yan sa ground is yung potential energy magiging kinetic energy. Yun, sir.
Ayan, thank you so much, Ash. So, according to Ashley, class, if when the man is still holding the ball stores potential energy. But when he decided to throw the ball towards the ground, that potential energy will slowly be converted into kinetic energy. Okay? Yan siya. So from potential energy to kinetic energy, and once it reaches the ground, once maka-reach na siya sa ground, and that ball will stop at a particular place, then that kinetic energy will then again be converted into potential energy. So from potential to kinetic, naging potential na naman siya. So in this case, we can tell that energy is not lost. Okay? Wala siya nawala. Okay? It doesn't dissipate, right? But what happened here is energy is being converted to another form of energy. So this is now the concept, class, of the law of conservation of energy. Energy can neither be created nor destroyed. It can only be changed from one form to another. Energy daw, we cannot create energy, nor we cannot destroy energy. It can only be changed, or it can only be converted from one form to another. I want you to really remember this concept, class, this law of conservation of energy, because we are going to revolve around in this concept next week. Dari ta magtuyok. I want you to really understand or to really memorize this definition of the law of conservation of energy. Energy can neither be created nor destroyed. It can only be changed from one form to another. Okay? Ayan, we cannot create, we cannot destroy energy. We can only transform it from one form to another. From potential to kinetic, or from kinetic to potential. Right? Now, speaking of conservation of energy, we cannot deny the importance of it. Conserving energy has a big impact on preserving our environment. What are your simple ways at home to conserve energy? And why is it important? Ano yung mga simple ways nyo sa bahay? Okay? That shows conservation of energy. Yes, Andre.
Sir, by unplugging appliances that is not in use.
Ayan, by simply unplugging the appliances na hindi natin ginagamit. In that way, we are conserving energy. Simple, but if done consistently, and that would that would create a massive help when it comes to conservation of energy. Ayan. Talia sleep. Okay. Drexler turning off the lights when not in use, not using too much of energy, such as electricity, and from Adler. What else, class? Apart from that, using natural light, ayan, that is a good idea for from Glia. And so all of these ways, class, of you, can somehow or can really help, uh, us in conserving energy. Okay, palungo na to ang suga kung wala may tao sa sulod. Unplugging our appliances when not in use. So in those ways, class, we can conserve energy. Now, the sum of potential and kinetic energy is called total mechanical energy. If we are going to add if we are going to add the potential and kinetic energy, we will have a total mechanical energy. So our formula for this one is total mechanical energy is equal to potential energy and kinetic energy. Again, class, the sum of potential energy and kinetic energy is the total mechanical energy. Okay? Where MET is the total mechanical energy, our PE is potential energy, and our KE is kinetic energy. Remember this formula. And our standard unit for energy is we have joules. Potential energy ba yan siya? Kinetic energy or mechanical energy? When we discuss energy, class, our standard unit for that is we have joules. G. Now, for gravitational potential energy of an object, it is determined by this equation. I also want you to remember this formula or sulat niyo siya, pinaabtik. GPE is equal to mgh. M times G times H. What is GPE? That is our gravitational potential energy. M for mass, G for acceleration due to gravity, as the name implies, gravitational, so it involves gravity. It involves certain height and height pod for H. Next, elastic potential energy of an object. It is determined by this equation. UA is equal to 1/2 kx squared. What is UE? That is our elastic potential energy. For our K, yung 1/2 class, it is constant. Andiyan na yan siya sa formula. Yung K natin is the Spring's constant in Newton per meter. And X is our extension or compression distance of the elastic material. Now, what is Spring's constant? What is, ito siya, extension or compression? So as you can see here, class, this side of your screen, if we are going to pull, let's focus first on this one. At the middle, naka-at-rest yung ating spring. So that means you neither pull it nor compress it. Okay? Yan. So at rest. Now, if you are going to pull the spring, class, you are going to identify the extension distance of the spring. Kanang birahon gyud nimo siya, to the point nga dili na nimo siya mabira pa og any further. Okay, that is the extension distance. When we say compression distance, i-compress na mo siya basically. Now, if you are going to push the spring to its limit, to the point nga hindi mo na siya ma-push, any further. So that is the compression distance of the spring. Yan. Tension and compression distance. That is the X in our formula. Next. Ayan. For kinetic energy naman, class, it is determined by this equation. PE is equal to 1/2 mv squared. Again, the 1/2 is constant. Our KE is kinetic energy. Our m is our mass. And our v is velocity. Obviously, no, velocity kasi kinetic energy is possessed by objects that are moving. So, it includes velocity. Objects that are not moving, so that is our velocity is 0. Now, let's try to answer this sample problem. Okay, we have here a ball rolling down the hill. Ayan. So, let's identify first the gravitational potential energy of the ball in point A. Okay? Gravitational potential energy of the ball at point A. Now, our given, if the mass of the ball is 0.5 kilogram, and the gravity is, of course, we have 9.8 meter per second squared, and our height, as you can see here, is 10 meters. Right? Now, again, what is the formula for the GPE, or the gravitational potential energy? So, ganito siya. What is our formula for GPE? Ayan. So, all of you answered GPE is equal to mgh. Okay? Mass times gravity times height. So, very easy. Just substitute the values. Our mass is 0.5 kilogram. And our gravity is 9.8 meter per second squared. As you can see here, nasa sa 10 meter height. Okay, 10 meters. Simply multiply. What is our answer? .5 kilogram times 9.8 meter per second squared times 10 meters. Ayan, so majority of you answered 49. If your answer is 49, class, kindly raise your virtual hand. Ayan. So majority of you answered 49. How about the standard unit? We almost forgot to include the standard unit. Ano ba ang SI unit ng ating energy? Ayan, joules. Okay? 49 joules. So, our standard unit for this one, class, is we have 49 joules. Right? So, 49 joules. This is our gravitational potential energy. Right? Now, you might be probably thinking, sir, if our GPE is 49 joules, what is our kinetic energy? Pila kaya ato ang kinetic energy, class? At point A, okay? Point A. What do you think? Ilan kaya yung ating kinetic energy? Ilan kaya yung value ng ating kinetic energy based on those concepts that I have discussed a while ago? Nabay value ang kinetic energy at point A or wala? What do you think, Divine? Ayan, from Adler, Maria, Dirk, and Divine. Wala. Okay? No velocity or none. Imo ba to imong answer, Andre?
Sir?
What was your answer kanina?
Ay,
Naputol.
none, sir.
Ayan, none. So team goes with ano no, with Adler, Maria, Dirk, tsaka Divine. Ayan. None. Walang kinetic energy. Okay. So that is right, no? Wala tayong kinetic energy at point A because the ball is resting. Okay? Naka-at rest pa yan siya. So, we can solve, class, the total mechanical energy in this problem. So, we have here the formula for total mechanical energy. It is equal to potential energy plus kinetic energy. So, we substitute the values. We all know that potential energy or gravitational potential energy is 49 joules. And our kinetic energy is 0. Bakit 0? Because the ball is not yet moving. Naka-at rest pa yan siya. Sa point A. Okay? Point A. So, 49 plus 0. So, our total mechanical energy, class, is 49 joules. Okay, remember this one, class. Remember this concept. Okay, again, our total mechanical energy is 49 joules. Now, let's move on. Let's have the point B. Okay? So, obviously, there is movement na. Okay, the potential energy is slowly being converted into kinetic energy. Okay, from point A to point B. So let us now identify the gravitational potential energy of point B. Again, we have here our formula. The mass is 0.5 kilogram. Gravity, same, 9.8 meter per second squared. Kung sa lang nalahi, this time, our height is 8 meters. Ayan siya. Formula, GPE is equal to GH, mass times gravity times height. Okay? Now, substitute the values. Our mass is 0.5 kilogram. Our gravity is 9.8 meter per second squared. And our, what do you call this one? Our height is 8 meters. To multiply, ilan yung sagot? 0.5 times 9.8 times 8. Okay, we will have, yan, majority of you answered 39.2. So that is our answer. So our gravitational potential energy at point B, class, is 39.2. Okay? So that is our gravitational potential energy. Now, question, what is our kinetic energy? Pila kaya ato ang kinetic energy? Zero ba gyapon siya or naa na tay value sa kinetic energy?
None value, sir.
Yan. Excuse me. For Andre, Adler, saka si Jessica, all of them answered naa na tay value. So by looking at this illustration class, we can really tell na yung ating kinetic energy is meron na siyang value because the ball is already set in motion from point A down to point B. So nag-move na siya. So naa na dapat value ang ato ang kinetic energy. So how are we going to identify the value of kinetic energy? Formula. Okay, again, formula for total mechanical energy is equal to PE plus Q. Now, pila gani ang ato ang total mechanical energy based on the from the previous slide? Ayan, so that's good, no? Kay na nasulat na to siya. So from Maris, Jessica, Daniel, Claire, our value or our total mechanical energy is 49 joules. So substitute the given, and this is our total mechanical energy. And this is our potential energy at point B, 39.2 joules. And just write down the key E. Kay mo man ni atong gipangita. Right? So, kinetic energy. Now, what you are going to do next class is you are going to transpose. Okay. And let me have my pen. I-transpose mo siya. So, in this case, you are going to transpose 39.2 at this side of the equation. Right? Tama natin na siya. Ay nalagi, nai-arrow dai. Ayan. So, transpose. Transpose 39.2 joules to this side of the equation. And remember class, transposing involves the change in sign. So, from positive 39.2, naging ano siya, negative 39.2 joules. So, 49 joules minus 39.2 joules is equal to pila nga tuwang key or kinetic energy. So, our kinetic energy class is we have 9.8 joules. So, that is our kinetic energy. Now, in this case, check if tama ba ka. Add potential energy at saka i-add mo itong kinetic energy. What is your answer? Add potential energy and add kinetic energy. So, 49 joules. So, that is yung 49 joules, ito yung value ng ating total mechanical energy. From that procedure, we can tell na tama ang ato ang solutions. Okay? And siya, questions class or clarifications. Anyway, we will not apply katong division property of equality, katong divide both sides gani because it is not applicable in this problem. So kani siya, transpose mo lang siya from this side to this side of the equation. Okay, wala tong divide both side kay dili to siya applicable in this problem. Sige, Adler and Maris, both of them said wala silang questions and clarifications. How about the others? Sige daw. Para ma-address na to siya. Sige, if none, ayan, kindly press the raise hand button. Ayan, thank you so much for responding here in the chat box. Ayan, sige, let us proceed. Now, let's have, who among you here are familiar with pendulum? Isa ang familiar diare sa pendulum. Kita na mo pendulum? Actually, if face-to-face class pa niya, no, you are going to build a pendulum, part of your performance task. However, given with this situation, we will not be able to to build a pendulum. Yan. Later na sa mga college days siguro ninyo, then you are going to build this one. Anyway, so as you can see here class, we have a pendulum. Ang concept ng pendulum is mag-swing-swing lang na siya. Okay, from point 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, balik na po na siya. Balik, pabalik-balik lang na. So that is the concept of pendulum. Now, how are we going to apply the concept of law of conservation in this pendulum? As you can see here, class, at number 1, the potential energy is at its maximum due to its height or position. Okay, maximum nga to ang potential energy. As the pendulum starts to move, the potential energy decreases while kinetic energy increases because of the change in position. So at point 1 class, our potential energy is at maximum and our kinetic energy is 0. Why? Bakit maximum yung ating potential energy? Because due to its maximum height. And in this case, for example, you are holding the pendulum, so wala tayong kinetic energy. But if you are going to release that one, that potential energy class will slowly be converted into kinetic energy. So at point 2, half of the total of the potential energy is lost and becomes kinetic energy. So as you can see here, PA is equal to KE. Ayan. Hence, potential energy is equal to kinetic energy. At point 3, the height of the pendulum is at the minimum. Thus, potential energy is also the minimum, while kinetic energy is at the maximum. Ani maguni sa class, okay? And for example, this is the surface of the table. Yan. As you can see here, class, ito yung ito yung ating maximum height. Number 1 at saka number 5 or 0.1 or 0.5. Kung saan yung maximum height natin, class, doon din yung ating maximum when it comes to potential energy. Yan. At point 3, bakit maximum yung ating kinetic energy? Tsaka yung ating potential energy is 0. Because at number 3, there is no height. Okay? Pag walang height, that means we will have no value when it comes to potential energy. So I have another example later on. But yan siya. So at number 3, the height of the pendulum as at the minimum, as you can see here. Thus, potential energy is also at the minimum or is equal to 0, while kinetic energy is at the maximum. At number 4 to 5, the reverse will happen. Mag-start ka with maximum energy at number 3. The kinetic energy will slowly transform to potential energy. As you can see here, number 4 tsaka number 2, they have the same value. PE is equal to KE. And so eventually, potential energy is at maximum while kinetic energy is at minimum at number 5 because the pendulum will momentarily stop at 0.5. Kung mag-stop siya, and there is also a height, maximum height, our potential energy is at maximum. So, since nag-stop man siya momentarily, our kinetic energy is equal to 0. Okay, so that is how we apply the conservation of energy in a pendulum. Yan. Questions or clarifications, class? Again, always remember that energy is neither created nor destroyed. Wala siya nawala. It is only being converted into another form of energy. From potential, nagiging kinetic, and from kinetic, naging potential energy siya. Okay. From Adler's question, explain ulit yung point 3, sir, kasi nalito po ako, sir. So, as you can see here, class, if balikan natin yung formula, ano ganit yung formula for gravitational potential energy? Diba? We have M, G, tsaka H, right? So, ito yung formula for GPE. GPE is equal to M, G, at tsaka H. Now, considering na meron tayong height when it comes to gravitational potential energy, yan, nasa chat box ang class, ang formula for GP. So, as you can see here, class, wala tayong height sa number 3. Okay? So, pag walang height, so that means to say, our potential energy is equal to 0. Wala tayong value when it comes to potential energy. Magkakaroon lang yan ng value if meron tayong certain height. As you can see here, sa point 1, potential energy is at the maximum level. Kasi nga, there is a height. Same goes with itong 5. Ayan. Sa number 2, meron. Yes, half. Saka sa number 4. Number 3 class is wala. So if there is no height, there is no potential energy. So saan napunta si potential energy? It is being converted. Lahat-lahat ng kinetic energy. Yan. So our kinetic energy is at maximum level. Ayan, sige. You go back to the formula. Okay? Pag walang height, yung ating potential energy as minimum level siya or 0. Yan. Sige. Meron pa tayong example. Ano siya? Roller coaster. So as you can see here, class, let's assume na itong point na ito, this is our point A. This is point B. This is point C. And this is point D. Now, let's start with point A. As you can see here, class, our maximum, our PE, our potential energy is at the maximum level. Our KE is equal to 0. Now, bakit maximum yung ating PE or yung potential energy? It is because dito natin malocate yung ating maximum height. Ito yung pinakamataas. Okay? Ito yung pinakamataas. So, since ito yung ating maximum height, class, that means to say, our potential energy at point A is maximum siya. And our kinetic energy is 0. Bakit siya 0? Because pagdating ng roller coaster at point A, it will momentarily stop. Mag-stop siya, class. Now, balikan natin yung formula. GPE, yan, GPE is equal to mjh. Okay? So obviously, yung roller coaster, meron siyang mass. If there is a certain height, actually given na yung gravity, and yung ating height as well. Yan. So since yung ating point A, class, dito natin malulocate yung ating maximum height, that means to say, dito din malulocate yung ating maximum na potential energy. Yan. Bakit yung KE natin is equal to 0? So balikan natin yung formula for kinetic energy. Now, what is the formula for kinetic energy, class? Itong ganiha. Nasulat ba siya? Ayan. From Jessica, ayan. Sulat gito siya. Okay. 1/2 is 1/2 times mass times velocity squared. So this is the equation for kinetic energy. Okay? So bakit 0 yung ating kinetic energy pagdating dito sa point A? It is because, just like what I've said, once ma-reach na ng roller coaster itong point A, it will momentarily stop. And once mag-stop siya, class, there is no velocity or there is no speed. Okay, nag-stop man siya. Right? Wala tayong value when it comes to velocity or speed. So that means our KE is equal to 0. Okay? Now, nag-move na nga to ang roller coaster from point A down to point B. Dito naman, class, dito na natin ma-apply yung ating law of conservation of energy. Yung maximum naman natin is kinetic energy, and this time our potential energy is 0. Okay? Bakit 0? There is no height involved at point B. Wala tayong height. Right? Wala tayong height. And just like what I've said, this is the point where we are going to apply the law of conservation of energy. So potential energy is being converted is being converted to kinetic energy. So our kinetic energy as its maximum level, yan siya. Okay? Yan. So from this illustration class, we can tell na makikita natin yung maximum potential energy sa pinakataas, and maximum kinetic energy is nandun sa pinakamababa, where there is no height. Okay? So sa point C naman, midway yan siya. So our KE at saka PE is just the same. Kung ano yung value ng ating KE, yun din yung ating value ng ating PE. Now, if you are going to add KE at saka PE, for example, you have a total mechanical energy of 49 joules. Yan. So, KE plus PE, 49 joules. It also applies to the different points. For example, sa point B, if you are going to add potential energy and kinetic energy, 49 joules din yan siya. Sa point A naman, if you are going to add potential energy and kinetic energy, still 49 joules din yan siya. Okay? So there is no loss of energy. Na-convert lang siya from one form to another. And lastly, we have here the point D. Maximum yung ating KE. Okay? And our PE, since there is no height, so it is equal to 0. Ayan. Okay? Questions or clarifications, class, based on this illustration. So, we are almost done. Yes, Jessica?
Sir, clarification lang po, sir. Pag walang height, sir, yan yung max ng kinetic energy, sir. Pero pag merong height, sir, yan po yung max ng potential energy, sir.
Ayan, sige. Thank you so much, Jessica, for that question. Pag walang height, class, yes, that is correct. That is the maximum. A maximum kinetic energy. On the other hand, kung saan yung maximum height natin, class, maximum height, pinakamataas. Okay? That is our maximum potential energy. Like, when we say na basta may height, that is our maximum potential energy. Ibang case din yun. Kung saan yung ating pinakamataas na height, yan yung ating maximum potential energy. Kasi meron man itong height. Ito sa point C. Meron siyang height, pero yung ating PE is hindi siya maximum. Bakit? Because makikita natin yung maximum height at point A. Ayan. Yung point C is mas mubo siya compared to point A. Ayan. Kung saan yung maximum height, that is our maximum potential energy. Ayan, sige. How about the others? Do you have questions or clarifications? Ayan. So if none, kindly press the raise hand button. Ayan. So medyo confusing lang siya at first, but if you are going to really understand the concept, dali lang man siya. From PE to KE, from KE to PE. Ayan. So conserving of energy. Ayan, so last 2 slides natin na siya. So a 3 kilogram ball, ayan, kindly focus on this one, class. A 3 kilogram ball is tossed upward with a kinetic energy of 115 joules. How high does the ball travel? Now, let us identify first the given. Now, what is our given in the problem? Sige daw, identify the given. Ano yung binigay na sa problem? Yes, we have mass, but our mass is not in grams. So, our mass is, ayan, 3 kilogram. Yes. Ano tayo, isa? Mass lang ba or do we have another value? Yan, from Ashley. We have 115 joules. 115 joules of kinetic energy. So our mass is 3 kilogram and our Ki 115 joules. So I forgot to include the joule sign. And our height, how high does the ball travel? So we are basically looking for height. So we all know, class, we are going to assume that our PE is equal to Ki. Okay? Ayan. So our PE is equal to Ki. So let's assume. So we all know that our PE is equal to mgh and Ki. Next is, in order for you to what we call this one, to identify the height or to solve for height, this time you are going to apply the division property of equality. So you are going to divide both sides with mass tsaka gravity. So in order for you to cancel mass and gravity, yung matira na lang is H is equal to Ki over mg. So I know that you are very well familiar naman with the division property of equality, no? So this is now our formula in finding for the height of the ball. So substitute the given. Our Ki is equal to 115 joules. And our mass is, we have 3 kilograms and our gravity is 9.8 meter per second squared. What is our answer? Yan, what is our answer, class? From for Dirk, from Jessica, we have 3.9. Dirk 3.91. Same goes with Maris at saka si Adler. How about the others? Ano naman ay question mark? Dili sure. For Kate, tsaka si Dana, we have 3.91 meters. Same goes with Cody, Jillian, Divine, kasi Dean, 3.91 meters. Same goes with Andre tsaka Chai. So our answer is, yan, so multiply muna yung ating denominator. 3 times 9.8 is equal to 29.4 kilogram meter per second squared. Our answer is 3.91 meters. Yan. So just to give justice nganong meter man na, sir. Kani magong kuan class, of course height meter magid ang iyang SI unit, but just to give justice, no, para mas ma-appreciate ninyo siya. Kaning joules magod class, itong joules, okay? 'Di ba kung force, kung sa force iyang SI unit is Newton. If you are going to bungkag the Newton, imo siyang bungkagon, ang value niya is kilogram meter per second squared. Ang joules class, excuse me. Ang joules, it can also be expressed as kilogram meter squared S squared. Okay? Ayan. So our joules can also be expressed as kilogram meter squared over S squared. Okay? Divide. Anong divide na to siya? Ara siya. Yan. Okay, nag-multiply man tayo diari sa ubos. So 3 times 9.8. So that is obviously 29.4. And our SI unit is kilogram. Yan, hiwi na siya kayo. Kamu na lahi sabot. Yan, kilogram. Ayan siya. Kilogram meter per second squared. Yan. So cancel. Cancel the same unit. Cancel kilogram. Cancel kilogram. 2 meter sa ating numerator. So that means cancel ka ng isa and isa sa baba. So cancel S squared, cancel S squared. So ano yung natira? We have the SI unit of meter. Yan. So that is our standard unit for height. Okay? I want you to remember, class, that joules can also be expressed as kilogram meter squared over S squared. Okay? Questions, class, or clarifications? Kasi kaning matingala mo ba nga anong meter mo na siya? Yan. Okay? So again ha, joules can also be expressed as kilogram meter squared over S squared. Now let's move on to the last slide. Last na gina siya, class. So a 550 kilogram roller coaster starts from rest at the top of a 70 meter hill. Assuming that track is frictionless, that means there is no outside force affecting the roller coaster. What is the roller coaster speed at the bottom of the hill? Now, what is our given in this problem, class? Try to identify. You reread, no? So that you will understand the problem. Yes, we have mass of 500 kilogram. That is correct. Our height from the answers of Claire, Adler, tsaka si Dirk, and Clyden as well, we have 70 meters. Now, what are we trying to solve in this problem, class? Ano yung hinahanap natin? We're trying to look for, we're trying to look for velocity. Okay? And so this is our given. We have mass, 550 kilogram, and our height is 70 meters, and our velocity is unknown. No? Wala pa tayong value sa ating velocity. Assuming that our PE is equal to KE. We all know that our PE is equal to mgh. Yan. And we all know that our KE is equal to 1/2 times mass times velocity squared. Now, what you are going to do next? Cancel meter. Okay? Okay, same lang man sila. I mean, mass, not meter. Cancel mass. Okay? So, yung natira is we have GH is equal to 1/2 V squared. Again, class, anong nainanin niya siya? Because you cancel out mass from both sides. Now, what you are going to do next, class, is you are going to multiply both sides. Cross multiply, to be specific. So, you are going to multiply 2 to GH. So, 2 times GH, that would become 2GH. So, same din sa kabila. 1 times V squared, that is V squared. Okay? So, cross multiply. 2 times GH, 2GH, and 1 times V squared, that is V squared. Okay, cross multiplication. Now, in order for you to find the value of velocity class, the next thing that you are going to do is i-square root nimo ang 2gh at saka v squared. Square root nimo siya. So, from this one class, ang result ana is, ano siya? Square root ng v squared is we have v. And our 2gh, square root na to na siya later on. Right? Yan. Next, this is the time you are going to substitute the values. 2 is constant. Nandyan na yan siya. Our gravity is 9.8 meter per second squared. And our height is 70 meters. Sige daw, kamuday pa dayon. Pila ang ito ang answer? 2 times 9.8 times 70. Ang answer, ana, is square root ninyo siya. And that would become our velocity. So what is our velocity class? Yan, Jessica answered 37.04. Same goes there. Ashley, Adler, Maris, saka si Dirk. Andre as well. Yan, Clyden, Karil, Adrian. I hope others are still, following. Yan, kasi, it would be better if we practice para dili ta makurat-kuratan when we are facing certain quiz. Okay, so majority of you answered 37.04. Let's find out. So 2 times 9.8 meter per second squared times 70 meters is equal to 1,372 meter per second. Of course, it will not end there. Kailangan mo siya i-square root. Tabang square root sa 1,372. That is 37.04 meter per second. Do not forget, class, the unit. Okay, wala na sa unit, minus 1 na siya. Okay? So, again, the unit or the standard unit of the velocity is meter per second. 37.04 meter per second. So, questions, class, or clarification? Yes, Adrian.
Sir, saan po gani ang yung square root of 2gh po?
Ayan, sige. So, the Adrian's question, asa gikan ang square root of 2gh. Likan na to siya. Okay? So, after you cross multiply 2 times gh, so that is 2gh. Okay? And, of course, sa kabila din, 1 times v squared, that is v squared. Now, in order for you to get the value of, to get the value of velocity, you need to square root the velocity or the v squared. At the same time, you need to square root the 2gh. Yan siya. So, dari sa gikan, Adrian. So, once i-square root nimo ang v squared, that means that is our, velocity na siya. Dili na siya squared, kaya square root na nimo siya. And your 2gh, square root pa yan siya. Ayan. And pagdating mo dito, sa 1,372, dito mo na sa square root. Okay? You are going to find the square root of 1,372. That is our final answer.
Okay po, sir. Thank you po.
Sige, sige. Yes, Jessica.
Surprise lang po ako, sir, sa B equals square root 1372. Ano, sir? M over S lang, sir, or M squared over S squared, sir?
Ano, M over S lang siya. Kaya kung mag-square root man ka, that means to say, mag-reduce ka in amount. So, you will not come up with M squared over S squared. For example, kaning V squared, naging V sa. Okay? And so, M over S, it will not become M squared, S squared after nimo siya square root. Same lang na siya. M over S. Unless, for example, ingon taog square root of M squared over S squared. Sama ang square root ana. Square root ana class is M over S. So as you can see here, nag-reduce ta when it comes to its value. Yan siya. Okay? Yes, Jessica.
Sir, I'm sorry po talaga. Ang meaning ko po kasi, sir, di ba, kasi gi-multiply sa yung M, sir, sa 70 meters, sir. So, hindi siya mag-M squared, sir?
Okay. Kani siya? Kani?
Yes,
And
sa
this one?
was square root 2 times 9.8 M over S squared times 70 meters, sir. Hindi siya pag yung result niya, sir, yung unit is, sir, is M squared over S squared, sir. Hindi po.
Ayan, that's good point no from Jessica. Okay. So wala na ako na-include ang square diare. So there must be a square at this what do you call this one, mass at saka itong S dito. So I wasn't able to include that one. And thank you so much for that, Jessica. No, Jessica is correct with this. Once you multiply 9.8 meter per second squared at saka 70 meters, so ang resulting na SI unit is M squared times S squared. Include nimo siya og square root, that means magiging M over S yan. Okay. Right? Sige, thank you so much for that. So another questions or clarifications, class, before we end our discussion. Ayan. Okay. Sige. Right? So again, class, we are encouraging you starting next week to really unmute your microphone whenever you try to answer something. Or if pwede po siya, we are also encouraging you to open your cameras. No, as part of the siya, ganing preparation for limited face-to-face classes. Part siya sa inyong training, kumbaga. So good na mo og mataog sayo, dili tag alas 10 or tag alas 11. Yan, so tayo na mo mata. Okay? So mula na akong remind sa inyo ha. Ayan. So I think there are no questions or clarifications na.